don't know why it's not got my picture up here. I just wanted to show you my cool shirt. Anyway, this is the Toolbox Killers. We'll start from the beginning and end up at the end. Okay. It's me again, Jennifer. Hopefully you know me by now. And today I got to figure out what to do with my hands. That's why I was wanting you to see me because I was doing something crazy. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see what's going on here. Y'all see me? I can't see you. Stop the screen share. Oh, okay. Yes, I look rough. I look rough all the time. My hair's still wet. Anyway, this is my cool new shirt. Tattoo Low Life. The cartel ink. That's what I was wanting to show you. Okay. Um, let me get back over to this. And again, it's me, Jennifer. Hopefully you know me by now. I gotta figure out something to do with my hands. That's kind of deja vu here. Um, I'm here every day to sit down and talk about true crime cases with you that's been heavy on my mind. It's a Bailey Sarian thing. And but she says Morgan. Um, it's a good time. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's interesting. It's true crime. And if you like true crime and weird shit, well, I suggest you hit that subscribe button because I'm here for you most days unless something happens and I can't do it. But for the most part, I'm here almost every day. Some days, most days, a few days, a few days. Um, Last week we done a little bit of house tour. Of course, now it's got more views, but it didn't do too well, seemed a little confusion. I appreciate the feedback. I tried to do something new and it wasn't your favorite. So, okay, we are going to move forward. Forward. This week we have a doozy. A doozy. Warning. The following presentation is intended for mature audience. This contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, adult dialogue, and extreme language. You have viewer discretion and it is advised. If you can hear me any better when I do that, but it makes me feel better. Okay. So I was wondering one day, like, where does the black van come from? Like the serial killers? And it turns out that it comes from the toy box killers. The toolbox killers, not to be mistaken with the toy box killers. And you know what I'm talking about, like the creeper vans, you know, and the windows and all that. Um, like when you see them, you're like, oh yeah, that's a kidnapping van or a killer has that van. You know what I'm saying? But where did it come from? And the story behind it starts out with Lawrence Bittaker. We're going to start with him. Lawrence was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, oddly, on September 27, 1940. His parents chose not to have children, so when Lawrence's mother was pregnant with him, it was a surprise, and she made it very abundantly clear she did not want kids. And he had a sister too, so they put them up for adoption. And They went into an orphanage. Lawrence did not end up getting adopted. When he was just an infant, Lawrence, I guess, did get adopted maybe for a little bit, but then his father worked in aviation industry, which required the family to move around the United States, all through his childhood. So he really didn't have a stable home or knew what one would look like. When Lawrence was 12, he would have his first run in with the law. He was arrested for shoplifting. You're going to see a pattern here, people, a pattern. Um, I was just looking at my little trees. I got more trees up there, but anyway. Squirrel. He was arrested for shoplifting, and he would obtain a minor criminal record. Over the next 4 years, he continued to get arrested for the same petty offenses. In fact, Lawrence's excuse for the petty thefts um, affects that he was committing, and he was blaming it on the not having enough love from home. And he didn't have enough love that he received from his parents. That was his reason. 1957, Lawrence and his family were living in California, where Lawrence had a really high IQ. I told I had his IQ down here. It was really high. But he struggled in school and he decided to drop out within a year of dropping out of high school. He had an arrest for car theft and a hit and run and evading arrest. For these offenses, he was imprisoned in the California Youth Authority, where he remained until he was 18 years old. Once Lawrence was released, he was looking for his adoptive parents and realized that he had been disowned and his parents relocated to another state. He had no idea where they went, and sadly, he never saw his adopted parents again. Pop quiz. Previously on the true crime that I do here, what other serial killer was also staying at the California Youth Authority? A. Ed Gein. B. Catherine Knott. C. Edmund Cooper or Edmund Kemper. 4. Gary Hendrick. I doubt you remember, but I knew it sounded too damn familiar. High IQ, California Youth Authority, fucking Edmund Kemper. I don't know where I got this spatula, by the way. But I was like, is there something going on? Edmund Kemper, he was a really big boy. If you know anything, if you're watching these shows, you know who Edmund Kemper is. But he was 6 foot tall, about 300 pounds. Hold on, I don't know what the hell this is. Fine. And nothing really says, there's a video, and I'll link it down in the description box of Edmund Kemper if you don't know who he is. And then you go watch it, but watch this first, then go watch that. Um, I mean, suspect that they suppose staying at the California Youth Authority at the same time. There's no reports of them being BFFs or anything, but I thought that was a little odd as such a small world, I guess. Anyways, there was a little bit of Lawrence, a little bit about Lawrence's upbringing. Now we're going to move on to Roy Norris. Now there's going to become one, two is going to become one, but they both have different upbringings. Um, so Roy was born in Greeley County, on February 5th, 1948. And Roy had been conceived out of wedlock. Now, remember, this was 1948, and having a baby out of wedlock was heavily frowned upon. And with that being said, parents decided to get married because they felt like it was the right thing that they had to do. Now, of course, you don't have to do that. But his father worked in a scrapyard, and his mother sadly was a drug addict housewife. He grew up in his parents' home throughout his childhood and teenage years, but he was repeatedly placed in child and care of foster families throughout the state of Colorado. Roy would say his upbringing was awful. His parents were verbally abusive towards him and would tell him that he was not wanted. And sadly, the foster families that he lived with constantly would deny Roy food and clothing. So there was a period when he was 16 that he was living at home with his parents, and his parents had visited a lady relative that they knew, um, who was in her early 20s. And Roy began speaking into her in a very sexual manner. Um, just something that freaked her out. I'm not really sure what was said to her, but they had reported that she ordered him to leave the house and informed Mr. Norris, his father, and so he beat his ass. Norris then stole his father's car, drove into the Rocky Mountains, where he attempted to commit suicide by injecting pure air into his artery in the arm. He failed and later was found by the police and taken into the runaway, kind of like foster care again. And once he returned to his parents, I mean, his dad beat him pretty badly. And then the parents had informed him that his younger sister were unwanted and that they intended on getting a divorce when both kids reached 18. A year later, Norris dropped out of school and joined the United States Navy, where he was stationed in San Diego in 1965 and was deployed to Vietnam in 1969, where he done one tour. He experimented with different drugs like heroin. Then he got an honorable discharge from the Navy after one tour of duty. So Lawrence, within days of his parole from California Youth Authority, Lawrence was arrested for transporting stolen vehicles across state lines. Following that, he was sentenced to 18 months imprisonment to be served in Oklahoma State Reformatory. In 1960, warrants were released from prison and soon reverted to a Lawrence was released from prison and soon reverted to crime again. He just like cannot stop because he seems like he can't stop within months of being released. He had been arrested in Los Angeles for robbery, and in May 1961, he was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for the robbery. And after serving 3 years, Lawrence was released. And then in 1964, he was arrested for parole violation. And a year later, he was released into society again. Between 1967 and 1971, Lawrence was arrested a couple times again for theft and robbery. He was sentenced to 6 months to 15 years imprisonment, but was released after serving 3 years. Excuse me. Um, I don't know if you've kind of caught on, but Lawrence has got a pretty lengthy record already. And then in 1974, um, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's just so ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. In 1974, Lawrence was arrested for assault with attempt to commit murder. You see, what happened is he stabbed a young supermarket employee who accused him of stealing from the supermarket. The supermarket employee seen him take a steak, and he followed him outside and asked him calmly, "Sir, did you forget to pay for that steak that you're holding?" Lawrence stabbed him in the chest, and he barely missed his artery, his heart artery. But and then, of course, Lawrence flees. The man lives, And then he was quickly restrained by two other supermarket employees. Luckily, thank God that that guy survived the stabbing. Lawrence was convicted with the lesser charge of assault with a deadly weapon, and he was sent to the California men's colony in St. Louis Obispo. So in November 1969, Rory um, he was arrested his first time for a sexual offense. He was charged in both the rape and assault and with an attempt to commit rape and assault with attempt to commit rape. February 1970, Norris attempted to deceive a lone woman in allowing him to enter her home, and the woman refused, and he attempted to break into her house, and the woman called the police, and he was arrested. The reason I'm reading this fast is there's like 50 pages of this, and I've not even got to the PowerPoint. Um, but it'll this is just some background on their criminal history and how they met. But Norris then in May of 1970 was out on bail for his latest offense. He went back to attack the lady student, went on to attack a lady student he had been stalking on the grounds of San Diego State University campus. Norris repeatedly struck her in the back of the head with a rock until she slumped over on her knees, and he repeatedly beat her head against the sidewalk. Shortly therefore, Norris was charged with assault with a deadly weapon and was committed to a total of 5 years imprisonment where he was classified as mentally disordered sexual offender. And then in the night, again, I'm laughing because this is just insane. I mean, think about it. Think about all I've just said. I've been reading for at least 5 good minutes, and it's nothing but just crime. Um, in 1975, he was released with 5 years probation, and he was declared by doctors as individuals who was one of, quote, no further danger to others, unquote. And here's the kicker. Just 3 months after his release, Norris approached a 27-year-old woman walking home from a restaurant in Redondo Beach, and he offered her a ride on his motorcycle. When she declined, Norris parked his motorcycle and grabbed the woman's scarf, twisted around her neck, and dragged her into a nearby bush where he then proceeded to rape her. Now, the rape was reported, but they were unable to find the Norris. They couldn't find them, and she did report it. However, a month later, the victim was out and living her life. She sees Norris's motorcycle, and so she calls the cops. She's like, "Oh shit, there's the motorcycle." So she calls the motorcycle, writes down the plate number, and immediately gives it to the police. Norris is arrested for rape, and 1 year later, he was tried and convicted and sent to the California men's colony in San Luis Obispo. And while incarcerated at the California men's colony, Norris met and befriended Lawrence. Side note: this pisses me off. That it's like this should be the end of the story, but it's not. It just keeps going and gets worse. Um, the two became friends. You would, you would think this would be the end of the story, but nay, 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 nay. And it just, it's like, what kind of people keep letting these people out of prison? I don't get it. I don't understand. Sorry, I think in my head as I go. Okay, Lawrence and Norris are in the same prison together, so they are becoming familiar with each other. I don't know what that means, but that's the word they used. Um, and they would say that they were acquaintances at first. They knew of each other and saw each other. I mean, like Lawrence would say that he only began talking in friendly terms when Norris taught Lawrence how to make jewelry in prison, like arts and crafts time. And then Norris would say that he became really close to Lawrence, saved him from being attacked from fellow inmates on at least two occasions. So after they became pretty close, um, they do what close friends do. They sit around and they gossip and with one another. And then they teach each other, they tell each other secrets. And that's what happened. They became friends and they started to discover that they had a lot of common interest. Norris also confided in Lawrence that it really turned him on. What really turned him on is like to see the fear in the face of a young girl. Now, this is where it gets hinky, hinky, hinky. Okay, and then he added his primary reason um, of why he had such a lengthy sexual assault record was weird because at this point, when he was arrested, he didn't have a lengthy sexual record. I don't know what that means. Um, but Lawrence follows that and tells Norris that if he ever raped a woman, he would have to kill her. So, he would not have to leave a witness to the crime. And Norris was like, oh God, wow, wow, you're so cool. And now the two were also one. It said that the pair often discussed plans of assault and murder of teenage girls. Once they were freed, you see, they shared this fantasy, which evolved into an elaborate plan to murder a girl of each teenage year from the ages of 13 to 19. They wanted to find a girl at every age between 13 and murder them and set better goals, people. Get better role models. But the parent but they had vowed to become reacquainted after they were released. Lawrence was released in 1987 or 1978 of October. He returned to Los Angeles where he found work as a mechanicist, mechanicist. And he earned about $1,000 a week, which was great money at that time. But he became friendly with a ton of people in his neighborhood and at his place of work, and he earned a reputation of being a generous, helpful individual who occasionally donated money to local charities. Reading about him, he seemed to be doing a lot for the public for a public service and donating his spare time. So it's strange, the background and everything. Okay, I don't know. I just thought what was going on was just odd, the back, like I said, the background and everything. Um, anyway, 3 months later, Lawrence was released. I think it was supposed to be Norris, was released in January 1979. Um, when Norris was released from prison, he moved in with his mother in Redondo Beach. He found employment as an electrician in Compton shortly after his release. Norris received a letter from Lawrence asking if he would like to meet up in late February, and the pair met up at a hotel and rekindled their plan to kidnap and rape girls. They shouldn't even have been released, in my opinion. But so they thought, okay, well, we got to have some way of like getting the girls all this. This is where they went and got a silver 1977 GMC cargo van. Okay, now we're going to look at a few pictures. Warning, warning, people. This is pretty much just what I told you. This is Lawrence. This is Norris. This is the first girl they killed. This was their toolbox. This was the creeper van. And this is the outside of the actual toolbox. And this is the 5 women that they killed. I think 2 of them was found and they never found the other 3, or vice versa. This was another young lady. These 2. And now they only killed 5 total. So I wanted to show you the picture of the van. And that's the ones that they killed. Now we're gonna play something in a minute, and I'll tell you right now, I hope you don't have weak stomachs. Um Nora's quote, wanted to pull up beside a teenage girl real close, open the doors and grab her, pull her in to what they call the murder Mac. That's what they called the van. And so I'm going to kind of skip over some of this because we'll never get to the end of it. If I don't, I'm not even halfway through it. These are the young ladies that they had killed. Cindy Schaefer, Jackie Gilman, they had her posing. They would have them pose for Polaroid pictures. That's another reason they got caught. But Norris turned on Lawrence, so he didn't die. But they would have soft drinks and a cooler and beer and marijuana, and that way they could try to get the girls into the van. And there was one girl that didn't want to get into the van, so they pulled up ahead of her and act like they were working on it. And as she walks by, they grab her and kill her. But they rape them. Like one would rape them, and then the other one would take off, and then the other one would rape. It was just sickening. Um, when they had got the 2 girls together, one of them tried to get out of the van. And he hit her with a bag of weights. They would strangle them. Trying to get down here to. Okay, I'm done reading all that shit. Okay. Where is my. Okay, I'm gonna play this, and let me tell you right now, it is horrific. If you do, this is like the biggest trigger warning you could ever hear. What's it not playing? This is a smile he had while this was playing. You hear screaming in the background. He's hitting her with a sledgehammer. Okay, that's enough of that. Then there's the transcripts. I'll leave a link for those too. Um, and I'll leave a link for this video if you're interested in listening to the whole thing. I think that's it. Okay, I think that's it. I wanted to kind of rush through this one because I've got more coming up that I'm trying to get the Idaho 4 stuff done. I've got a clean version of that, and let me tell you, I'm gonna go through because I think there's more versions. So that tells me right there that's probably not real. Um, I don't think it's real anyway. But anyway, I'm going to jump off here. Feel like I should be doing something, and I'm not. So I will see you soon.